In the vast emptiness of space, humanity had always dreamed of first contact. We imagined grand diplomatic meetings, technological exchanges, or even epic battles. But no one expected our first encounter with aliens to involve pulling their entire fleet out of a massive quantum singularity that had trapped them between dimensions. I was on the deep space mining vessel Thunder's Edge when we picked up the distress signal. At first, we thought it was just random space noise, the kind you get used to hearing on the outer rim. But there was something different about this one. The signal pulsed with a mathematical precision that couldn't be natural, yet it didn't match any known human patterns. Our science officer, Dr. Chen, spent 3 days analyzing it before she burst into the mess hall during dinner shift, her eyes wide with excitement. "It's a cry for help," she announced, "but not from any human source. The signal contains complex quantum patterns that suggest an advanced civilization is trapped in a dimensional fold." The crew gathered around the main display as she explained how a fleet of alien ships had apparently encountered some kind of spatial anomaly. Their attempt to use it as a shortcut through space had backfired, leaving them suspended between dimensions, unable to fully exist in our space-time and slowly running out of whatever they used for power. Captain Sarah took one look at the data and made the call that would change human history forever. "We're not leaving them out there," she declared, her voice firm. "Humanity's first contact won't be finding the remains of a dead civilization we could have saved. The rescue mission seemed impossible at first. We were just a mining vessel, not some advanced research ship. But that's the thing about humans. We're at our best when the odds are stacked against us. We had something these advanced aliens didn't: experience with quantum mining techniques used to extract rare minerals from unstable pockets of space-time. Dr. Chen modified our mining equipment while the engineering team, led by the brilliant but perpetually grumpy Chief Rodriguez, reconfigured our ship's power systems to generate a stable quantum field. We had one shot at this. If we failed, we might end up trapped alongside the alien fleet. As we positioned ourselves near the anomaly, I could feel the Thunder's Edge humming with more power than she was ever designed to handle. The hull creaked under the strain, and warning lights flashed across every console. But we held steady. The first glimpse we got of their ships took our breath away. Massive vessels, elegant and otherworldly, shimmered like ghost ships caught between realities. Their designs defied our understanding of physics, all curved lines and impossible angles that seemed to fold in on themselves. We activated our modified quantum tethers, establishing a connection with the nearest alien ship. The energy drain was immediate and severe. Our engines screamed in protest as we tried to pull them back into normal space. Warning sirens blared throughout the ship, and I could hear the chief engineers shouting about power fluctuations that threatened to tear us apart. But then something unexpected happened. The aliens, even in their weakened state, seemed to understand what we were trying to do. Their ships began to pulse with a strange energy that synchronized with our quantum field. They were working with us, using what little power they had left to help us help them. As the first alien ship began to materialize fully in our dimension, we realized this wasn't just a rescue mission anymore. This was humanity's chance to prove ourselves to the galaxy, not through military might or technological superiority, but through something far more powerful: our unwavering determination to help others in need, even at great risk to ourselves. But what emerged fully into our reality wasn't quite what any of us expected, and the consequences of our noble act would ripple across the galaxy in ways none of us could have imagined. The alien vessel that materialized before us looked like a massive crystalline structure, its surface rippling with colors that shouldn't exist in our spectrum of light. But what caught everyone's attention wasn't its otherworldly beauty. It was the obvious battle damage scarring its hull. These beings hadn't just accidentally stumbled into a dimensional trap. They were running from something. The bridge crew fell silent as we processed this revelation. Captain Sarah stood from her chair, her expression a mix of concern and determination. "Dr. Chen, any signs of life aboard?" she asked, keeping her voice steady despite the tension that filled the air. Our sensors struggled to penetrate the alien ship's unusual structure, but they detected thousands of life signs, all in what appeared to be some form of suspended animation. The aliens had apparently put themselves into a kind of stasis to survive their dimensional imprisonment. As we continued our rescue efforts on the remaining fleet, Chief Rodriguez made another startling discovery. The quantum field connecting our ships was allowing a limited form of data transfer. Fragments of their ship's logs began appearing in our systems, automatically translated by algorithms we didn't even know our computers possessed. They call themselves the Luminae, Dr. Chen explained, her fingers flying across the holographic display as she sorted through the incoming data. They're not just refugees. They're the last survivors of their civilization. They were running from something they call the Void Hunters. The name sent chills down my spine, though none of us understood its full significance yet. What could be so terrifying that it would force an advanced civilization to risk a desperate dimensional jump with their entire surviving population? Our questions were interrupted by a sudden surge in energy readings. The process of pulling the alien ships back into our reality was creating quantum disturbances far larger than we'd anticipated. The fabric of space-time around us began to fluctuate wildly. "We need to speed this up," Captain Sarah ordered, her knuckles white as she gripped the command rail. "Those energy signatures we're putting out. We're lighting up this sector of space like a beacon. If something was hunting them—" She didn't need to finish the thought. Everyone on board understood the implications. We were potentially drawing the attention of whatever had destroyed the Luminae's homeworld. The rescue operation took on a new urgency. One by one, we pulled the crystalline ships back into normal space, each one bearing similar battle scars. Our engines strained against the enormous power demands, and the chief engineer warned that our systems couldn't take much more abuse. But just as we established a quantum tether with the final vessel, our long-range sensors detected something that made my blood run cold. Multiple objects were dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of our scanner range. Their energy signatures were unlike anything we'd ever encountered, and they were heading straight for us. Dr. Chen's face went pale as she analyzed the readings. "Captain, those ships, their quantum signatures match fragments of data from the Luminae records. They're consistent with descriptions of Void Hunters," Captain Sarah finished grimly. She turned to address the bridge crew, her voice carrying the weight of a decision that would affect not just our ship, but potentially the entire human race. "We didn't come this far to abandon them now. All hands to battle stations. We're about to find out exactly why these beings frightened an advanced civilization enough to make them flee into another dimension." The incoming ships grew closer, their forms still hidden in the darkness of space, but their presence felt like a growing shadow over our souls. The Luminae vessels hung silent around us, their occupants still locked in stasis, unaware that their nightmares had followed them across the dimensional barrier. And humanity was about to face its first interstellar conflict, not for glory or conquest, but in defense of beings we had never even properly met. The Void Hunters emerged from the darkness like living shadows, their ships resembling abstract nightmares made real. They moved with an unnatural grace that defied the laws of physics, leaving trails of distorted space in their wake. Our sensors struggled to maintain a lock on them, as if their very existence confused our instruments. 3 minutes until they're in weapons range," our tactical officer announced, her voice steady despite the fear we all felt. We were a mining vessel with basic defense systems, about to face an enemy that had driven an advanced civilization to the brink of extinction. Captain Sarah's response was to order all power diverted to the quantum tether holding the last Luminae ship. "We're not leaving without them," she declared. "Chief Rodriguez, how much longer?" 5 minutes minimum," he replied through the comm, the strain evident in his voice. "The power draw is enormous. We're pushing our systems way beyond safety limits." Those 2 minutes of difference felt like an eternity. The bridge crew worked with desperate efficiency, knowing we were now in a race against time. The Void Hunters were closing in, their ships moving in formation like predators about to pounce. That's when Dr. Chen made a discovery that changed everything. "Captain," she called out, her eyes fixed on her readings. "The stasis pods in the Luminae ships, they're starting to power up. The energy from our quantum tether isn't just pulling them back into our dimension, it's reactivating their systems." The crystalline ships around us began to pulse with internal light, like massive gems catching the first rays of dawn. But we had no time to appreciate their beauty. The first shot from the Void Hunters streaked past our bow, missing us by meters. It wasn't a normal energy weapon. The space it passed through seemed to fold and distort, creating ripples in reality itself. Evasive maneuvers, Captain Sarah ordered. The Thunder's edge responded sluggishly, weighed down by the enormous power drain of maintaining the quantum tether. We were a sitting duck, trying to protect a fleet of sleeping giants while facing an enemy that could tear holes in space-time. Another shot grazed our starboard shield, and the entire ship shuddered. Warning lights flashed across every console as our shield generators struggled to comprehend and adapt to the strange energy they were trying to deflect. But just as the situation seemed hopeless, something remarkable happened. The nearest Lumine ship, fully materialized in our dimension, began to emit a harmonious resonance that our sensors could barely detect. This resonance spread to the other recovered ships, creating a complex pattern of overlapping frequencies. "They're awakening," Dr. Chen whispered, her eyes wide with wonder and fear. "The Lumine. They're all awakening at once." The Void Hunters seemed to sense this too. Their formation broke apart, their attacks becoming more frenzied and desperate. They knew what was coming, even if we didn't. A brilliant light began to build within each Lumine vessel, growing in intensity until it was almost painful to look at. The quantum readings were off the scale, suggesting energy concentrations that shouldn't have been possible. Captain Sarah gripped her command chair as another near miss rocked our ship. "Whatever they're doing," she said through gritted teeth, "they better do it fast. We can't take much more of this." The light from the Lumine ships continued to build, and our sensors detected massive power fluctuations throughout their fleet. They were preparing something big. But would it be enough to save us from the Void Hunters? And more importantly, what price would we all pay for this desperate gambit? As the light reached its crescendo, time itself seemed to hold its breath. The Void Hunters, the Lumine, and one small human mining vessel hung suspended in space, about to discover if humanity's compassion would prove to be its salvation or its doom. The blinding light from the Lumine ships suddenly collapsed inward, creating a moment of absolute darkness that felt like the universe itself was holding its breath. Then, in a burst of energy that our sensors couldn't even begin to measure, each crystalline vessel released a wave of pure quantum resonance that rippled through space. The effect on the Void Hunters was immediate and devastating. Their shadowy forms seemed to fracture and distort, caught in the harmonious frequencies that the Lumine had unleashed. But as we watched in awe, our brief moment of triumph turned to horror. The quantum waves weren't just affecting our enemies. They were beginning to tear apart the fabric of space-time around us. "Multiple dimensional fractures forming," Dr. Chen shouted over the blaring alarms. "The Lumine's attack. It's destabilizing this entire sector of space." The viewport showed reality itself beginning to crack like broken glass, with paths to other dimensions bleeding through the fissures. Through these tears in space-time, we caught glimpses of something that turned our blood to ice. Beyond our reality, countless more Void Hunter vessels waited like patient predators. What we'd been fighting wasn't their main force, it was just their advance scout party. Captain Sarah's face hardened as she realized the true scope of our situation. "They've been hurting us," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "The Void Hunters didn't follow the Lumine here by chance. They wanted us to rescue them, to create these dimensional breaches." Our ship's systems were going haywire, struggling to make sense of the chaos unfolding around us. Through the quantum tether still connecting us to the last Lumine vessel, a new data stream began pouring into our computers. But this wasn't like the previous transmissions. This was a warning encoded in patterns of pure mathematics. "The Lumine." Dr. Chen's voice shook as she translated, "They're not just refugees. They're guardians. Their entire civilization dedicated itself to keeping the Void Hunters contained in their dimension. That's why they had to flee, not to escape, but to prevent the Hunters from using their technology to break through to our reality." The implications hit us like a physical blow. In trying to help, we'd unknowingly played right into our enemy's hands. The rescue attempt, the battle, even the Lumine's defensive attack. It had all been orchestrated to create these dimensional breaches. Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled over the comm, raw with urgency. "Captain, we've got maybe 3 minutes before these fractures tear us apart. Whatever we're going to do, we need to do it now." Through the chaos, we watched as the Luminae ships began to move with purpose, forming a precise geometric pattern around the growing dimensional tiers. Their crystalline surfaces pulsed with complex patterns of light, like they were preparing for something monumental. Then, through our quantum link, we received something unexpected, not just data, but a choice. The Luminae were giving us access to their most closely guarded secret, a technology they had hidden even from themselves to prevent the Void Hunters from stealing it. Captain Sarah stared at the translated data streaming across her console, her expression a mix of awe and dread. "They're offering us a way to seal the breaches," she said slowly, "but the cost—" She looked up at her crew, her next words carrying the weight of galaxies. "If we do this, we're not just closing dimensional tiers. We're making a decision that will affect every living being in our universe." The Void Hunters began pouring through the breaches in greater numbers, their shadowy forms darkening the stars themselves. The Luminae fleet held their position, their pattern now complete, waiting for our decision. In that moment, humanity found itself holding the key to a conflict as old as the universe itself, with no way to know if we were about to become its greatest heroes or its ultimate destroyers. Captain Sarah looked at the glowing symbols streaming across her console, the key to either our salvation or our doom. The Luminae's secret wasn't just a weapon or a shield. It was a fundamental force of reality they had learned to harness. The same force that had allowed the universe to separate into distinct dimensions in the first place. "If we do this," she announced to her crew, "we're not just closing the breaches. We're going to reinforce the walls between dimensions." But the energy required. She didn't need to finish. We all understood that this would be a one-way trip for someone. The Void Hunters were streaming through the tiers in reality in ever greater numbers, their shadow ships creating a writhing darkness that threatened to engulf us all. The Luminae fleet maintained their precise geometric pattern, channeling impossible amounts of energy through their crystalline hulls. That's when Dr. Chen made the discovery that changed everything. "Captain, the quantum resonance pattern. It's the same frequency as human consciousness." Her hands flew across the controls as she explained. The Luminae couldn't use this technology themselves because their consciousness operates on a different quantum level. But we can. The Thunder's Edge shuddered as another wave of dimensional energy washed over us. Chief Rodriguez's voice crackled through the comm. "Whatever we're doing, it needs to be now. The hull can't take much more of this." Captain Sarah made her decision. "Lock our quantum field into the Luminae's pattern. We're going to act as a bridge between their power and our dimension's fundamental frequency." As our ship's systems synchronized with the Luminae fleet, something extraordinary happened. The consciousness of every crew member became part of a larger quantum network. We could feel the Luminae's ancient knowledge flowing through us, their countless years of standing guard against the darkness. The Void Hunters sensed what we were attempting. They abandoned all pretense of strategy and rushed toward us in a desperate wave of shadow and distorted space. But they were too late. Through our combined consciousness, we reached out and touched the fabric of reality itself. The power was indescribable, like holding the universe in the palm of your hand. With precision born of human intuition and Luminae knowledge, we began to seal the dimensional tiers. The Void Hunters screamed in frequencies that shouldn't exist as they were forced back through the closing breaches. But in that moment of connection, we finally understood what they truly were, not conquerors or hunters, but fragments of the universe that had been left behind when reality first split into dimensions. They weren't trying to invade, they were trying to make themselves whole again. This understanding led to our final crucial decision. Instead of simply sealing them away, we did something unprecedented. Through the quantum network, we offered them a choice: continue their eternal hunt, or allow us to help them find peace in their own dimension. The response was immediate and overwhelming. The shadow ships began to transform, their threatening forms dissolving into pure energy that flowed willingly back through the breaches. They weren't being banished. They were going home. As the last dimensional tier sealed itself, the quantum network gently dissolved. The Luminae fleet's crystalline surfaces dimmed to a soft glow, and our ship's systems returned to normal. But we were all forever changed by what we had experienced. The Luminae sent us one final transmission before their ships departed. For eons, we thought our duty was to guard against the darkness. You humans showed us that sometimes the greatest defense is understanding. You have not just saved our fleet. You have ended an eternal conflict. The stars are now yours to explore, and we look forward to exploring them with you. As we watched their magnificent ships disappear into the depths of space, Captain Sarah smiled. "Well," she said, looking at her exhausted but proud crew, "for a simple mining vessel, we didn't do too badly." But as we set course for home, our sensors picked up something peculiar, a quantum echo unlike anything we'd seen before, and we realized that perhaps this wasn't the end of our story, but just the beginning of humanity's greatest adventure. The quantum echo we detected turned out to be more than just a residual effect of our dimensional engineering. As we studied it over the following weeks during our journey home, Dr. Chen discovered that our interaction with the universe's fundamental forces had left an indelible mark on both our ship and its crew. The Thunder's Edge's mining equipment, originally modified for the rescue operation, now exhibited strange properties. Our quantum tethers could occasionally pierce the veil between dimensions, giving us brief glimpses of realities we never knew existed. But more importantly, every crew member retained a faint connection to that moment of universal consciousness we had shared. "It's like we've been tuned to a different frequency," Dr. Chen explained during one of our daily briefings. "We can sense things now that we couldn't before. The universe feels more alive." She wasn't wrong. Even our most hardened engineers reported experiencing moments of profound connection with the technology they worked with. Chief Rodriguez, ever practical, found a way to modify our sensors to track these quantum echoes. "If there are more beings out there like the Void Hunters," he said, "beings that just need understanding rather than confrontation, we'll be ready to help them too." As we approached Earth, Captain Sarah gathered the crew for one final meeting. "What we experienced out there," she began, looking at each of us in turn, "changes everything we thought we knew about the universe. We went into space looking for resources to mine, but we found something far more valuable: the knowledge that sometimes the greatest discoveries come from taking a chance on helping others." The debriefings back on Earth lasted for weeks. Scientists, military officials, and government representatives from every nation wanted to understand what had happened. But how do you explain to someone what it feels like to touch the consciousness of the universe itself? How do you describe the moment when humanity proved itself worthy of joining a cosmic community we never knew existed? The Luminae kept their word. Within a year, they returned to Earth, not as refugees but as allies. Their crystalline ships became a common sight in our solar system, working alongside human vessels to establish the first true interstellar coalition. Their advanced understanding of dimensional physics, combined with humanity's unique ability to bridge quantum consciousness, opened up new possibilities for exploration and discovery. As for the Void Hunters, we received periodic quantum pulses from their dimension, not messages exactly, but feelings of peace and contentment. They had found their place in the universe, just as we were finding ours. The Thunder's Edge was officially redesignated as an exploration vessel, with our entire crew volunteering to continue serving together. After all, we weren't just colleagues anymore. We were family, bonded by an experience that had transformed us forever. I still stand on the observation deck sometimes, watching the stars streak by, and think about how close we came to making a very different choice that day. If we had chosen fear over understanding, violence over compassion, we might have sealed away not just the Void Hunters, but our own potential for growth. Captain Sarah joins me occasionally during these quiet moments. "You know," she said to me during our last conversation, "people keep calling us heroes for what we did out there, but we were just doing what humans have always done best, taking a chance on helping someone in need." As I record this story for future generations, I can feel another quantum echo building in the distance. Something new is calling to us from the depths of space, but this time we're ready, because now we know that the greatest adventures don't come from conquering the unknown, but from reaching out to understand it. After all, in a universe as vast and mysterious as ours, sometimes the bravest thing we can do is extend a helping hand to those who seem different from us. And in doing so, we might just discover that we're not so different after all.